Okay, I'm gonna go briefly over the UK, just kind of hit some of the bullets. The UK is a unitary country with a parliamentary system. It recognizes a constitutional monarchy. It separates the head of state, head of government, and it's a two-house system. So you have the upper house, which is the House of Lords, and the lower house, which is the House of Commons. The House of Commons is a lot more powerful than the House of Lords because the House of Commons represents the people's voice. Rather, the House of Lords is like people that come from rich families. You have to understand what the Prime Minister and his cabinet mean. We'll go. I have Prime Minister in the cabinet. The Prime Minister appoints a cabinet member based off party loyalty, and they together vote on laws. They endorse legislation, and if you're part of the cabinet, you have to vote with your party. And that is called collective responsibility. We need to know how the court system works. We need to know that it's judicial administration and not judicial review. In the US, if we have a constitution that says that if we make a law that goes against the constitution, our judiciary can shut that down. Not really the case in the UK. They can't shut a bill down because they go by common law. So whatever they make whatever bill they make is now part of like the new constitution. They can't make an unconstitutional bill. Judicial administration, however, says that if you make a bill but you're implementing it wrong, the courts can shut that off. Obviously there are some checks on Parliament. The big one is a vote of no confidence, or the fact that you have to call elections every 5 years. Kind of going over the structure of it, the House of Commons and the Prime Minister hold many of the powers. The House of Lords is very ceremonial, with the respect that it can only delay bills by like a year. Like I went over the Supreme Court, it's the court of last resort. You have to retire after 75 years, and it goes by common law. You have to understand how the voting system works. The UK is a 2+ voting system, meaning that there are two main parties, but there are like 5 or 6 little parties in there. For example, you have the Labour and the Conservative Party. The Labour is to the Democrat Party as the Conservative is to the Republican Party. Those are the two parties in the United Kingdom. But then we have parties like the Scottish National Party and Sinn Féin and the DNP that are in Scotland, Northern Ireland. Then you have a Welsh party. It's a 2+ system. They use plurality, but yet they have multiple different parties because of the national identity. If you live in Scotland, you're very proud to live in Scotland. You have that national identity, and you're gonna be like, I'm gonna go vote for someone who represents the Scottish Nationalist Party. You don't have to live in a district to run in the district. And you don't really vote for the person, you vote for the party. You don't really vote on like a charismatic person. Let's say like in an election we have right now, the president, you vote for the president, right? You vote for a person. In the UK, not really. In the UK, you vote for the party. We'll go over some of the things that Ms. Bowers said to go over in the class before the test. Make sure you understand how party is above the individual. You have to understand the difference between neoliberalism and austerity. Neoliberalism is government spending, taxes and regulations decrease, and austerity is tax and spending increase. You have to understand what a backbencher is. It means people, the lower parties that sit in the back of the benches, that don't really get a role in government. The only time they get like a role in like speaking is when they get to ask questions during talking time. I think that'll be on your test, because Ms. Bauer was honing in on it. To discuss the purpose of talking time is a check against bills that allows backbenchers to ask questions for a bill. Understand the civil society. What civil society is, it's how people voluntarily volunteer in the political atmosphere of your country. Understand that the North is a lot wealthier than the South. No, the South is wealthier than the North. So England is a wealthier area than Scotland. We already went over judicial administration. Know that they are a pretty homogeneous country. So even though they kind of have conflicting nationalities, they are united with language, they're united with culture, and they're united with religion mostly. The London 7/7 bombing attacks is like their 9/11. It's when Islamic radicalists bombed a subway, and it started kind of like this anti-Muslim immigration movement. You have to understand that the TCU and the CBI are both very important interest groups. The UK would used to just talk to them, which is a corporatist system, where they would talk to a specific interest groups before making laws, before establishing that. But now they talk to multiple, so a pluralist government, which we have now. And then talking about some of the cleavages, class cleavages, rich and poor, the educated and uneducated, religious, ethnic, anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim, and going back on religious, the Troubles. The Troubles is a time in Northern Ireland where there's a lot of conflict between the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, who fought on the side of the Catholics, who were fighting against discrimination, and who more of like a poor area of the population. They're fighting against the Northern Ireland paramilitary group, the Protestant, more poshy, more rich group that was very loyalist at the time. So two parties fighting, Protestant and Catholic, fighting in Northern Ireland. That is one of the religious cleavages. The IRA is now called Sinn Féin, and the NI paramilitary group is called DUP. The Good Friday Agreement converted the armies into these political groups and allowed Northern Ireland to have their own parliament. Going back on education as well, education is to serve the public, so it's very cheap. If you get an education somewhere, you are set to serve the UK. So that'd be like a politician or like a surgeon. That would be like the type of things. So you could get into Oxford for free. Well, not now after some of the prices rose, but like back in the day, you could go into Oxford for free because public education is very cheap. You have to, the party kind of runs you. If you're running an election, the party runs you. Parliamentary sovereignty, supreme legal authority, and the courts cannot strike any law down. Kind of going over the people. We should know Margaret Thatcher. She's the Iron Lady. She stood up to trade unions, and she was neoliberalism. That is the economic system that she wanted. Lower taxes, lower regulation, lower spending. You should know Tony Blair. Tony Blair is the new Labour Party in a time period after Margaret Thatcher. He set up the Good Friday Agreement. He brought the Labour Party to the center of the group. He was a very charismatic person. And then we should know David Cameron. Tony Blair, and then this is David Cameron. David Cameron, austerity was high austerity, which means that he wanted higher taxes but lower government spending to get out of a recession. He formed a coalition government with Nick Clegg. That meant it was a hung parliament. That's a lot of vocab words. A hung parliament means that one party didn't win, so a coalition needed to be formed. So somebody needed to be put in power. And that during their time as a coalition, AV, which is alternative vote, was set as a referendum or set as a bill. Kind of understanding the line of succession. All of these happened, well, all the way up to Boris, because they needed to get out of the EU. That's kind of the main thing. Boris Johnson got them out of the EU. I don't even know who that girl is. Shortest prime minister. She was useless. And then Rishi Sunak, Keir Starmer, and then you have Kimi Badenoch. So all these are conservative. A lot of these is like getting out of the EU. And then this is just kind of like the party, like the Conservative Party falling out of power. And then now Keir Starmer comes in. I think he's in a little hot water though. And then understand how the parties align. The Conservative Party is balancing the budget with austerity measures. So increasing taxes, decreasing immigration, and getting that exit out of EU, which they did. The New Labour Party is to end austerity, to raise taxes on business and the rich, to nationalize utilities, rail, post, and water, and to guarantee EU rights. Those are the two main parties. I think I covered everything. If you have any questions, ask, because I could probably answer them. I would say, if you were to also study besides watching this video, I would go through and get like a random, one vocab word. Let's use the word legitimacy. How does the UK get its legitimacy? It gets it from the monarchy. That would be a source of legitimacy. Describe the economic systems. Is it a command economy? Is it a laissez-faire type of economy? Just kind of throw those words in there to compare. I think that's almost everything.